Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 251 of the 8-Bit Adventures podcast. We're here to bring you the latest and greatest geeky news of the week. I am your host, Sean Hayes, and we don't have a whole lot of news this week, but oh boy, oh boy, the big news this week, pretty much dominating the gaming news landscape right now. Is Microsoft announcing that it intends to buy Activision-Blizzard King. So that's going to be our deep dive today, folks, because that there's a lot to unpack there. Yeah, hope everyone's doing well. Hope you're all surviving the cold. And staying warm, staying toasty, and staying healthy. So steadily getting better from COVID. Have picked up a couple of little indie games here and there. Or not indie games, but just like smaller games here and there. Trying them out. So, yeah, hoping to just kind of lay low for a little while and get stuff done. So, all right, why don't we get right into our quickfire news? Because we only have a couple items this week. So we're gonna get right into that, shall we? Okay. So first up is we got an official trailer for Moon Knight. So this is going to be a new Disney Plus original series. Looks darker, a lot darker than a lot of other Marvel series that have been on Disney Plus, or just any series that have been on Disney Plus, really. I mean, Disney has, so it will, be PG-13, but just the tone definitely feels a lot darker than a lot of other Marvel properties. So this stars Oscar Isaac, who is going to play Moon Knight. So I have not read the Moon Knight comics. I notoriously, despite doing a comic myself, don't actually read a whole lot of comic books. But from what I understand, this may deal with a lot of mental health issues. So that's a bit of a warning for folks before heading into this. Kind of, I guess it's similar in a bit to like Batman, except they show in the trailer of like not understanding like what's real and what's not. So I know that may pose some red flags. I certainly hope that it doesn't delve into a lot of harmful tropes and stigmas surrounding mental health. Especially right now, with everything going on, probably not a good look if they don't do it well. So, but yeah, so the trailer's up for that. So it will be on Disney Plus. So I mean, it will be, PG-13 at worst. So I think it's gonna lean hard on that PG-13 rating though. It feels kind of tonally, it felt a little bit more like DC stuff than Marvel, if I'm being perfectly honest. So yeah, so that is currently out. I don't recall if they mentioned, let's see, Moon Knight release date. Oh, March 30th, 2022 is when that's coming. So, something much sooner is the old Banjo-Kazooie coming to Nintendo Switch Online Expansion Pack. That is coming January 20th. So for those who are watching live, that is tomorrow. If you're listening to the audio version, congratulations, it's today. January 20th is when it arrives. I've been looking forward to this. I still have my old copy of Banjo-Kazooie. I still have the N64. I still have all the cables, the Rumble Pack, and the expansion, the memory pack, and all the I guess like the expansion pack for the N64, but also the memory packs to go into the controllers themselves for the save data. Like I have all of it still. It's getting, a TV that you can hook it up to is becoming an issue these days. But here's hoping the emulation's good, and that it doesn't fall under the same pitfalls that a lot of the other N64 titles have with emulation. And it'd be nice. Like I'm looking forward to going back and playing it. It definitely kind of perfected on the sort of 3D platformer collectathon genre. That unfortunately, Rare like did this game and then they like could not iterate further on it and refine it further, and we ended up with like Donkey Kong 64. So I'm sure there are folks who are going to be like, "Oh, shots fired on that," but it's not a good game, folks. Like, don't worry about it. But yeah, Banjo-Kazooie, great game, great soundtrack. Totally looking forward to it. And if you did not have the pleasure of playing it when it first came out, I encourage you to try it, because it's definitely worth playing. It is one of those that helped define a genre, and honestly, probably one of the best games that to come out on the N64. So, definitely excited for this to be here, and the fact that it's like coming out this week. So, I believe related to that. Okay, no, not yet. All right. I was looking up the release date for Pokemon Arceus Legends. That's not this week. Don't have to worry about it. We're still good. We're still good. You can get you can get a little over a week of playtime with Banjo-Kazooie before jumping into Pokemon. So, all right. Last bit of news is Arcadum Rise of Arkhan. So this came out. This is part of Netflix Gaming. So it's a little weird. This released in early access to Steam in like 2020, and it has been available since then for $20. And is still up there. Sounds like there may or may not have been a lot of updates recently. So not sure about that. But this is available to Netflix members for free on mobile specifically. So on iOS and Android. It will not have microtransactions or ads. It's just you get it as part of your Netflix subscription. This is a sort of team-based RPG with card battling mechanic. Like it's a deck building game, but it's like a team-based RPG that has kind of Hearthstone like gameplay a little bit. But then there's also tile-based exploration. like you go around a world map to explore things, and the world map's on tiles. So it's like not quite Faria, not quite Hearthstone, not quite something like Sentinels of the Multiverse. It's sort of got elements of all of those. With admittedly like a killer art style. Like I really dig sort of the I mean, it's got a very sort of it reminds me of like of comics, like of large publisher comics, but it without as harsh of lighting, and it's the aesthetics and the line work, the coloring, the line quality, really speaks to me with the artwork. So I'm excited for it, especially since I can get it for free on mobile. So yeah, no word. I don't have anything to say about the gameplay yet, and how it actually plays. It reviewed really well on Steam, up until recently when like I guess they pushed out a patch, and quote unquote broke a bunch of stuff in the game. But then they reverted a lot of those changes due to community pressure. So who knows? It is developed. Let's see. Let me just look up who the developer is pretty quick, because I know, it's published by Netflix, but the developer is. It says Netflix Incorporated is the developer, but like, I know there's a specific developer because they're not the developer listed on Steam. But anyway, very exciting. I'm looking forward to trying this out. Probably I don't know how it'll be on phones. It may be more of an iPad game or tablet game if you have an Android tablet. But yeah, one of my goals is to try and get some playtime in and report back on it. So, but I'm very excited. So yeah, that is the news for this week. As I said, it's a little light on quantity, but it's because of this next segment that really the reason why it's a little light on news this week, because it's just been so dominating the news cycle. So why don't we get right into it, shall we? Okay. So let's see what the timeline is here. So yesterday, and that just goes to show like it was kind of quiet, is like the usual, weird little tech pieces and like where to buy a PS5 and everything. So yesterday, this news broke that Microsoft intends to buy Activision-Blizzard King for $68.7 billion. Billion with a B dollars. This is quite possibly one of the biggest entertainment company purchases we've seen. Like Disney bought Lucasfilm for $4 billion. Keep that in mind. $4 billion, and everybody thought that was outrageous. When Disney bought Marvel, paid about the same price for Marvel, so $4 billion. Okay. All right. So this is comparable to, okay, so it's not one of, okay. So Disney paid $71.3 billion for Fox. So this is about the size of that. But like that's wild. And here's the thing. So a lot of folks are thinking that that it's for Blizzard's properties. Or maybe, to get Call of Duty. And I think that's part of it, but I don't think it's the whole picture. I think there's a lot of hardcore gamers who are unwilling to believe that a big chunk of that is to get King for Candy Crush, because Candy Crush continues to be a mobile juggernaut. Like what's about bigger than Activision and Blizzard combined. Let's put it that way. But so yeah, so the news broke yesterday that they're gonna buy this, and then it's just been a mad scramble. And with a couple emails going out from Phil Spencer, from Bobby Kotick. So what it looks like is, being a merger deal, this might take until summer of 2023 to be finalized and to go through. Okay. All of this information is so this is all according to The Verge. I'm going to throw a link into the chat here. So this is like a timeline of that stuff. I will put this link in the show notes as well for audio podcast listeners, so that you can see. But ultimately, there's not a whole lot in the timeline. It's mostly like the emails, the announcement, and then sort of like speculation as to how big this would make Microsoft. So ultimately, I think in terms of that, a lot of folks are worried one way or another, either wringing their hands in glee or worry that like federal regulators will prevent this for monopolization. So here's some evidence as to why that's not going to happen. The first is Disney was allowed to happen, right? If federal regulators did not stop Disney from purchasing, or like since they've owned ABC, ESPN, Freeform, and then purchasing Lucasfilm, Marvel, and then Fox. Like Fox was the big one, right? Like federal regulators not blocking that. I don't think this is going to have a problem because Microsoft buying these studios does not necessarily give them it gives them a better portion of market share for games being published. But at the same time, there's been some talk about like exclusivity for Bethesda stuff, at least starting out. However, it's unlikely that they would, suddenly make them, force them to make like Call of Duty an Xbox exclusive. Like they're not going to make like Diablo now suddenly only be available on Xbox consoles. Microsoft is usually pretty good about letting studios continue to do what they're going to do. Because ultimately, obviously Microsoft would love people to be buying Xboxes and to be playing games on Xbox. However, I mean, in this case, like if they own those developers, game sales, regardless of where they are, still help the company. So, and here's the thing, like, you're not going to suddenly pull Candy Crush from mobile phones. Like, you're not going to suddenly force everybody to buy a Windows phone just to be able to play Candy Crush. Like, you're not going to do that. What I don't know is if, I would say, like, if you're no longer going to see stuff appear on Steam, but, like, Blizzard stuff isn't on Steam anyway. Like, it's in Blizzard's own little ecosystem, and I'm pretty sure that's also the case for Call of Duty as well. And of course, I'm suddenly realizing I might be getting Call of Duty and Battlefield mixed up. Okay, no, Call of Duty is Activision. Okay. Okay, Battlefield is EA, Call of Duty is Activision. I always get the two mixed up. And I know one of them's Activision and one of them's EA, but I can never remember which one's which. So, yeah. I mean, ultimately, this is, Microsoft, I think is... Well, they also very clearly say that they're sort of building their own metaverse, quote unquote, and acquiring this set of companies is going to help them sort of build out their stuff. I don't know. I have a pretty cynical take on metaverse concepts, especially if they're going to be, in these little fractured walled gardens. I don't know. I don't know what sort of cross-pollination is going to be required for an actual metaverse between all these companies. What I do know, ultimately, from this acquisition is that Microsoft will now own the developers of what are probably two of the biggest fantasy RPG franchises, namely Elder Scrolls and World of Warcraft, or not World of, but just Warcraft in general. Like those two are some of the biggest. You know, I'm pretty sure like Final Fantasy comes to mind as another one that rivals that, you know, or, you know, overpasses that, you know, in terms of just recognition. But there, I mean, there's no way, I don't think anybody's ever going to acquire Square Enix. I think they're big enough that they're going to, I don't know. And because they're a Japanese company, like Microsoft's not going to get their hands on them. That's just not going to happen. But ultimately, you know, they said it was for a metaverse. I think it's also just, you know, Microsoft. I think there's a couple different things at play here. Number one, I think ultimately, they, you know, especially with, you know, thinking about our continued coverage of reporting on all the problems happening with Activision-Blizzard, you know, it, even if they're still profitable, like it outwardly seems like it's a bunch of studios in trouble. And so Microsoft could be looking at it like, well, I mean, they might be profitable, but they're still clearly in trouble. And they have properties that it would be great to have and to bolster, you know, our list of, oh, look at our developers. And as a revenue stream, what sort of stuff could they come up with if they didn't have to worry about cash flow? Which is a thing that has been reported by studios that were bought by Microsoft, is like, now they don't have to worry since Microsoft has money. like now they have just this influx of capital that they no longer are worried about, you know, if we make these certain design decisions, is it going to put us out of business? You know, so they can afford to, you know, do more interesting things or do what they want with their games and not necessarily be like, well, we have to make, you know, and fans of Blizzard might be ringing a bit true of like, they don't have to follow the latest trends of consumer tastes in order to capitalize on getting people's money, that they can, you know, go back to, you know, what are systems that like we just enjoy and think are good, and not have to worry about like competing with the latest trends to you know, to keep rolling in that dough. So I think that is part of it. I think another part of it is just, you know, outside, you know, prior to a lot of their recent acquisitions, you know, outside of Halo, I mean, you know, Microsoft was known to have Rare, but like that didn't really pan out very well for them. So I think maybe it was just to get some decent developers under their umbrella. Now, whether this means that we start seeing, you know, cross-pollination from one development studio to another, I don't know. Does this mean that Microsoft could now, you know, that Microsoft could enter the fray with their own brawler game? Since like Sony has that very sad Smash clone that they keep trying to push every couple of years, that like just feels weird because like they don't have the unifying art style like Nintendo does with Smash Brothers. I can't even remember what it's called, like Sony All Stars or something like that. It's a very generic name. But whether this means Microsoft will start building one of their own, and where you see Master Chief versus, you know, Sylvanas Windrunner, I don't know, you know, versus the Dragonborn. Maybe. I think it might be interesting. I don't know who would make it is the issue, right? Because these are still all independent studios. They're owned by a parent company. But yeah. A big thing is now it sort of introduces Xbox into mobile gaming with King, and it gives them a very, very big foothold. So, like, I feel like they could do nothing, right? Like, and my hope is that they actually do stuff with the Activision-Blizzard side, but like, they don't even have to touch King games, and just let King continue to print money with Candy Crush, and they'll get their money back, right? Like, Candy Crush 2021 revenue. Candy Crush generated like almost $1.2 billion in 2020. Like, one game, one mobile game alone. It is huge. So, and then you factor in Call of Duty, you factor in Blizzard stuff. Now, the other hope is, right? So Kotick will still be around at least for another year, to summer 2023, unless something happens, right? Because there is like clauses in his contract that they would have to pay out a huge amount of money were they to just let him go. So obviously they don't want to do that. But if unless there's some thing that happens, but if it takes a year to finalize this deal, like, they're still separate entities until this deal goes through. Okay, so that's something that we all need to remember. So if it takes a year for it to go through, like, it won't be finalized until summer of 2023, and then they all merge. Now, there has, in the various emails that were sent out to employees, it talks about how there may be a transition period in which Kotick stays on, but then he's likely, they may offer him a position, they may not. Those studios would directly report to Phil Spencer, so Kotick may not like that and may just say, I'll just take my golden parachute and be out of here. Microsoft may say, you're going to take your golden parachute and get out of here. It's a little unclear. I am cautiously optimistic that I think because Microsoft sort of leaned a little heavy, right? Well, so Phil Spencer at least leaned a little bit on reiterating that Microsoft is an inclusive and supportive workplace, and those are core values that they care about. So whether this means that they they start leaning on that, and like once the deal goes through, they clean house. Cautiously optimistic that they will do that. And I don't know what the status of like the board of directors will be, since those companies directly report to Microsoft, or like or the management teams directly report to Phil Spencer. I don't know if then like the board of directors for Activision-Blizzard King like gets dissolved. Like, this is corporate level stuff that I'm not very familiar with. Or if they would keep them since they would be, a subsidiary. That I'm not sure. My personal opinion is they all gotta go. Get rid of them all. Just clean house. Start fresh. Like, essentially, you have a giant influx of cash and a new corporate structure, under Microsoft Gaming. Phil Spencer's now in charge. It's time to take a good hard look at policies and procedures in place, both, on the human resources side, on the game development side, on the marketing side. Take a look at everything, and take a look at what your supposed core values are, and what do you need to do to get back to those core values. I think this is certainly an opportunity for Blizzard to maybe fix a lot of the PR disasters that they've undergone over the past 5 years. And who knows? It might be an opportunity for them to go back and revisit games that kind of fell by the wayside. Heroes of the Storm. Especially like if money, like it's unclear as to like whether money will actually be a concern or not, right? If it means that because there's this influx of capital and there's the financial backing of Microsoft, does the fact that Heroes of the Storm is now a much smaller game because all of the development team was basically pulled from it, is that actually a problem? Or does it mean like they could actually move people back onto that team and develop it out further? I don't know. I mean, I hope they would. And, hopefully it means that they can attract better talent to replace all of the problematic people who it sounds like weren't even contributing all that much anyway. But at least to certainly replace a lot of the talent that they lost over the years. My question would be is it a matter of time before Microsoft starts turning its eyes to like indie studios that were created from Blizzard departures, right? Like a Second Dinner or Dreamhaven. Who knows? I think it's a little difficult since like many are. I think Second Dinner actually now has Tencent backing. NetEase. Sorry, NetEase. Not Tencent. That's right. That was kind of a little bit of of sort of an outburst of news when that happened. So for those who don't know, Second Dinner is where a lot of the original Hearthstone team left to go form. Ben Brode, Young Woo, and a couple of other folks formed that studio when they left. So there's that. I think they're working on some Marvel game. And Dreamhaven, I think, is like still. I don't know if they've actually produced any games yet. So we'll see. I'm cautiously optimistic about this. I think I think as far as CEOs go, you can do a lot worse than Phil Spencer. And I think to his credit, I think he actually cares. That he's not certainly as problematic of an individual as the current CEO of Activision-Blizzard King. But at the same time, is it just a matter of time before we discover something? I don't know. All I know is that they were very clear about like it. There was some consternation about Satya Nadella's letter that sort of talked about all the accomplishments that Kotick has made. But I don't know. My argument would be that it's a way to that it was speaking nicely, because obviously you don't want to start trashing the company, like the people that are in the company that you want to buy. But my interpretation was also specifically talking about the things that they were failing at. So, like, it's if you read it literally, it reads like a compliment, but like it felt like there was subtext there. So, maybe I'm reading too much into it. But so in what Phil Spencer wrote is, as a company, Microsoft is committed to our journey for inclusion in every aspect of gaming among both employees and players. We deeply value individual studio cultures. We also believe that creative success and autonomy go hand in hand with treating every person with dignity and respect. We hold all teams and all leaders to this commitment. We're looking forward to extending our culture of proactive inclusion to the great teams across Activision-Blizzard. To me, that is essentially corporate speak for you guys are doing a terrible job at this, and it shows in the quality of work that you're producing. So we look forward to fixing your problems. So yeah. I mean, ultimately, I hope this is a good thing. Because now also, I mean, here's the other thing is what this does for the lawsuits. I don't know. Like, if it takes the suits until the time that the deal's closed, like, does it then make Microsoft liable as the parent company? I don't know. Or if it's now suddenly like Microsoft stepping in, like if they start making changes, does that affect, I don't know if it affects the suit at all, but if they actually take proactive change, like if changes aren't happening quickly enough, is Microsoft going to step in and say like, no, you will make these changes now? Like, you are not handling this, and you need to step it up or you'll be replaced. I don't know. I think with the impending suits, I think Microsoft has a vested interest to get these problems fixed, these cultural problems fixed at those companies. So yeah, and not just and so it points out not just with personnel at the companies, but also the communities, because Activision Blizzard, I can't speak to the Candy Crush community, but there is a renowned faction within the Activision and Blizzard community, like player communities, that is exceptionally toxic. And whether that gets addressed or not, I don't know. I'm not going to pretend to have any insider information or any prescience or anything. I just I would like to I'd like to see better, honestly. And if Microsoft can do it, then I will gladly support that decision. So, but no, I don't think there's going to be any antitrust problems. I don't know, and here's the other thing is, I mean, ultimately, all you'd have to do is just say you can't slap any exclusivity deals. Because then there you go. Right? Like, because I mean that's the concern. I guess is like now suddenly if you have to buy an Xbox in order to play all their stuff, or if you have to get Game Pass to have all their stuff. I don't know. But at the same time, like if Activision, like if Blizzard's still going to release their games on, all the consoles when it releases games on consoles, most of their stuff's PC anyway, so like that's not going to matter. Um, King's on mobile, and Activision, as long as their stuff is cross-platform, all that changes is ultimately who ends up with the money. Like it doesn't change anything for consumers. So, I don't know if that actually radically changes anything. Let's put it certainly didn't in the context of Disney. And I mean, I would argue that like mobile carriers are a much bigger issue. Mobile carriers and internet companies and cable companies are a much bigger issue in terms of antitrust than this deal. So yeah. I mean, let's put it this way. Unless they start making that stuff exclusive, like I don't know, I don't think this is going to affect the number of people that buy Xboxes. Like it's not going to suddenly cause the number of Xboxes to sales to drastically shoot up. And I don't know. I feel cynical enough about the state of antitrust law in the United States that I don't think that's going to go anywhere. So yeah. Oh, yeah. So ultimately, it adds them to Bethesda and Xbox Game Studios, which I believe encompasses Rare as well. Yeah, I don't know. I think people think Activision-Blizzard King, like, out of all of them, like King's probably the biggest in terms of impact. And I think like Call of Duty is popular, but I think people overthink its popular. Like I think they overstate its popularity. World of Warcraft is not the juggernaut that it used to be. And I mean, even at its highest peak, it had what 12 million, 13 million players. I mean, you look at that versus like the install base for, I don't know, Mario Kart 7. Is that the one on the Wii? Oh no, that was the 3DS one, and that sold 19 million units, right? Oh, it was just Mario Kart Wii. Yeah, 37.2 million. Like, on the one hand, like it feels like the thought is they're a lot bigger than they are. So I don't think it's going to be an issue in terms of antitrust. And honestly, when people are talking about it, they're not even talking about Activision Blizzard. They're talking about King as the Microsoft making a huge leap into mobile, and that's the concern for folks from an antitrust perspective. Like the Activision and Blizzard stuff, like whatever. I mean, it ultimately means they're just owned by somebody. I don't know. I think it would be a much different story if, say, Then Sony announced that it intends to buy. Like, I think it's if the console manufacturers now start buying the bigger studios, like I think if Microsoft said, like down the road, we're buying EA, and Sony then said we're buying Square Enix and all of its subsidiaries, and Nintendo said we're buying Sega, yeah, or something weird like that. Somebody buys Capcom. Knowing Nintendo, they'd probably be like, well, we're going to buy Konami because because we're Nintendo and we're going to do weird stuff, and somebody, I don't know who would buy, maybe Sony buys, oh, geez, the people that make Witcher and Red Dead Redemption. And then Microsoft turns around and says, well, we're buying Rockstar. I think in that world, then there's a case for antitrust. But at the same time, as I said, nothing's been done about mobile carriers and nothing's been done about cable companies. So, and nothing's been done about Disney. So, I don't know. I think entertainment is a weird issue. It is a weird venue for antitrust. Because the whole point about antitrust is for consumer protection. And so the argument is, does this actually harm consumer choice? And if the answer is no, or realistically no, then it's a difficult case to make. So, all right. Ultimately, it was wild news. So I feel like there will still be weekly updates on Activision-Blizzard, but from a different perspective now. So, sorry. So Take-Two owns Rockstar and 2K and Private Division, and they bought Zynga. So if somebody were to buy Take-Two, then Interactive. So, all right. That is going to wrap up just my thoughts on the whole Microsoft deal. So let's talk about Questlog real quick. So, I got one comic done. Actually, I got 1.5 comics colored. So I feel really good about that. Feel good. So the goal is to at least finish up that half a comic. Since I started it and got a lot of the base coats down, and then it's just doing a lot of the shadow work of the shading and stuff. So the goal is to at least finish that. And I'm going to add in here and play Arcanium, because I really want to try that out and be able to talk about it next week, unless there's another big bombshell news drop. Who knows? Maybe the whole entire talk is maybe Banjo-Kazooie's emulation is real bad and the internet just wants to talk about that. Who knows? But we'll finish coloring another Chapter 1 comic, try and play Arcanium, and we'll see where we get. So, getting real close to finishing that book. So, yeah. Here's hoping. Here's hoping, folks. All right. That's going to wrap up this episode of the 8-Bit Adventures podcast. Thank you all for joining me for this episode. If you want to see more stuff from me, from 8-Bit Adventures, be sure to check out 8-bitadventures.com. That's where all the stuff is over on the website. The comics, the artwork, podcasts, the stream VODs, the Stardew Sunday VODs, all that stuff. If you'd like to help support that content, The best way to do that is to become a patron over at patreon.com/8bitadventures. You can become a patron for as little as $1 a month, and you get exclusive access to some patron-only comics. You get early access to the 8-Bit Adventures comic. There's some behind-the-scenes sort of D&D content there. All sorts of cool stuff. I would like to give a shout-out and thank you to all of my current patrons. Thank you very much. And hopefully at some point there will be, Berkshire Bites will come back. I will actually get that fishing minigame series done for YouTube. I'll have more stuff for you. Finally, our opening theme is One Up by Professor Shy Guy. You can find his stuff over at professorshyguy.bandcamp.com. And with that, we're done. So, as always, have fun, everyone. Happy gaming, and enjoy your pie cake.